Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of the People Progressing podcast. And I've been looking forward to having Dr. Eric Holsapple on for a long time. I met with him about 4 or 5 months ago, got his book, and he was gracious enough to just sit down with me and talk through some things. And he's written a book called Profits with Presence, and we're going to go over some of that today, go over some mindfulness things today. It's an unbelievable story. And Eric, I always start this by just having you explain where you grew up, what you did as a kid, what you like to do as a kid that kind of led you into what you're doing now. Give us
Yeah.
your background.
Yeah, I grew up in rural Maine. My dad was a football coach. And during the summers he ran a camp. And I would describe childhood as we worked.
Yeah.
My dad had to work, part-time jobs in carpentry and then ran a camp in the summer and was coaching and those kind of things. So and I was a kid that was usually in trouble. My dad used to say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And, I think I got through high school by the skin of my teeth. My dad was superintendent when I got through. I think he might have, I don't know how I got into college. I think he might have called somebody. I don't know. Uh, there were two exceptions to it. One was sport. I loved, teams and always played a sport. I had to stay out of trouble enough and get good enough grades to stay on the team. That was probably the biggest impetus. And the other was work. I always, we always worked and I always rose to the top at work. And I would say, I made it all the way through PhD in college. And as soon as I hit college, it was just a totally different thing. I had my first economics class. And it was like something just turned for me. Like I understood the world. Not that I understand it today, but I had
Yeah.
that feeling
Yeah.
as an 18-year-old, like high school was just like, what am I doing here? Uh, and so it just turned for me and work. I always just rose to the top at work. My dad, uh, my dad had a saying too. He said, if you're having trouble making it, finding a job, he says, you're setting your sights too low. Look to the top. He says, they're turning over every day.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. I have to ask you, how much did sports play into your business success?
Oh, I think a lot. Just and I take a lot to my dad too. My dad just had the philosophy is outworking people.
Yeah.
There's rumors of him, when he was coaching football, he'd be out there with had all the parents turn the headlights on the field so they didn't have lights back in those days. So they could get an extra half hour play calling in. And he was a big tennis player. He was always down in the basement. You could hear the ball going against the wall, late. And so I just learned that success was hard work. And I learned that through sport, and just worked on it, practiced. And I don't know, I wasn't that naturally gifted young. I developed more later in athletics, but I always worked. I took up golf in my 30s, and it was like I just worked at it.
Yeah.
And I think I picked that up from sport, and I
Yeah.
picked it up just my heritage from my family was we worked. So
And
yeah.
teamwork. The
Oh,
teamwork that you
totally.
mentioned that earlier, being part of the team, how much is that translated into your business world?
No, totally. We run a LC real estate group as a partner model. I always figure, I don't, it's a small company and you couldn't do the same thing at some of the larger companies, but I just, we just support each other, you know? And it's just been a great ride that way. And there's a lot of athletes in the company and we run it that way. When you need to do something, you step up and cover for somebody. You just do it.
Now, in your 20s, you had some great success as a business leader. You were a CEO in your 20s. Is that correct?
And I was miserable.
Yeah.
I ran the North American division for an Australian group. Started in Denver and was transferred to LA. And I ran offices in Denver and Princeton, New Jersey. I had Western Canada, and then our day here would shut down at 6 and I'd have to get on the phone to Australia. And they'd travel around and you'd always meet them on weekends and whatnot. But what happened was I was very successful. I was good at my job, but I kind of lost myself. I got way overweight. I drank too much. I was an athlete, but hadn't been to the gym in years. I finally got a transfer to Boston. They asked me to go up there and straighten out a company they're having trouble with. It was New York Stock Exchange company. And there were enough problems in town that I didn't have to travel. I bought a scale. First time I'd been on a scale, and I stepped on that thing. I went, whoa, you better make some changes or you're not going to be around very long. And somewhere in that, I decided to leave that job. I went on a consulting basis with them to help them out of it and to help me start my company. I said, I'm going to go back to college, get a PhD to teach and find something with some more meaning. I was really good at it, but I wasn't, satisfied or fulfilled. And somewhere in that, I stumbled on yoga.
Okay.
And that was my first entry into mindfulness. It was like I'd become associated with my body. Ken Robinson is an author. He passed away recently. He used to say, my body just takes my head from meeting to meeting. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway, I got into that, and then a little bit later, my oldest brother, was a poet. Now my dad was a football coach, and he was a poet. They were like oil and water.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I don't
Yeah.
want to play football. You will play football. I don't want to get a haircut. You will get a haircut. And he just became estranged from the family for years, and he was one of my mentors. So it was really hard. And I watched him. He took up meditation, and I watched him come back to my dad. My dad didn't change. He was in his 70s. He's a hard ass, and I love my dad. He was great, but he wasn't, he wasn't very soft and cuddly.
Yeah. 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 I know exactly what you're talking about.
But anyway, I watched my brother come back to the family, and it started with us, and then he got opened up to my dad. My dad opened up, and I watched one person change my whole world. Because I got my family back. It was like, when there's something going on in a rift between family members, there's something not right at holidays and things, and it healed it. And he asked me if I wanted to try it, and I did. And I had immediate results. I had results in sports. I had results at work. I had less stress. I just felt better about things. But I did it very privately, just for my own. It's like my yoga. I just do it in the morning by myself. And I say I didn't come out for years. It isn't something you got to run around saying, hey, I'm meditating this or that. I just did it on my own and it had such results. And I was very dedicated. When I took something on, I had that work ethic, so I could do it. And I started reading a bunch of books in that area. And later on, people started noticing a difference in me at work, where I was more somebody you would say, hey, just don't pee off Eric, he'll
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a temper, and I was very good at what I did, but sometimes it was scorched earth. And people noticed that I left that behind, and I wasn't that way anymore. And we started a seed group at work where we read a book and, we usually call it centering, not meditation, because it was, still woo woo. It's gaining acceptance, but it's still out there a little bit. And before I knew it, the room was full. The
That's
management
awesome.
team changed the vision statement to mindfully creating community, and everybody got involved with nonprofits, and just gave it acceptance and approval to just have some sort of practice. And we start most of our meetings with a little centering. Not a lot. I mean, it's not goofy,
Yeah.
but it makes a huge difference. It makes the meetings be so much more efficient. And I've just noticed it also gives people permission to put their families first, which is why we work.
Right.
It's why we're there and doing
Yeah.
what we do. So
Okay. I want to go back. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm
great,
excited as heck to get to it. But first, I want to go back to your 20s. You're a
great.
CEO, very highly successful in business, but all of a sudden something hit you that said, this isn't working for me. Maybe it was when you
Yeah.
stepped on the scale or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And I want to use this word because it's a big word with me, purpose. You didn't really feel like you had a purpose
Yeah.
in what you were doing. What was that mindset change? How did that happen?
Well, it was a couple things. It was stepping on the scale. It was passing through 30, was being single, somebody that wanted to be a dad, but, wasn't living the lifestyle that gave me a meaningful relationship. Um, I had traveled the world by myself, you know, calling home from Kathmandu or, Hong Kong or wherever it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just like hollow. So that scale moment was an epiphany moment, because it was a moment when I started to change. I mean, it was just like immediately I started running again. I lost a bunch of weight. I quit drinking for a bit. I did all that stuff because I just was there, and I just finally, whatever it was the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever it was at that moment. I'll never forget that moment. And I just started making changes, then, because I just kind of like knew, yeah, I just had a feeling that I just was going to die. You know, I just wasn't going to see 40.
So there's a lot of people out there that have epiphany moments.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that have them that don't do anything about them.
Yeah.
You did something about it.
I sure did.
What
Yeah.
is your suggestion to people out there who might be listening to this, who are kind of going through the same type of thing? They're just not sure the next step to take to get more into their purpose or to change their situation.
Well, I think often we start too big.
Okay.
You know,
Great point. Great point.
I have found that it's the little tiny changes that you're consistent with, that you can make, these tweaks that you can make, and you make a commitment to, and you form an intention around, and you stick with it. Now, if you can't stick with something, you know, it's hard to get there. I think I was pretty fortunate that I just had a tenacity uh that came through from my dad, that, like a dog on a bone, if I get on something, and it's why I'm successful at work that way. But there's other way. I mean, you get support groups, you find other people to do it, you go away on a weekend retreat or something, but you find some way. It's like going to the gym, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you've done, it's like, if I haven't run in a while, the first month of running is all uphill. Every step is like so hard. But once I've run for 6 months, I crave it. It's easy to put the shoe. In fact, those habits you form. There's a great book, if you're looking for that. James Clear, Atomic Habits, has been #1 on the Wall Street Journal for, I don't know, years.
Yeah. Amazing book.
And our leadership group is reading it right now. It's, you start those little things and figure out how to, set your sneakers out the night before, and how do you get, how you stack habits, and how you get rid of. One of the great things he says in there is, this is just a huge one, is it's changing your identity, forming a good habit. It's like, if it's mindfulness, I'm a mindful person. You're just changing your identity from being somebody that's not to being somebody that is. And
Yeah.
that's a game changer. So I also find reading can be huge. So many people, I got the reading habit when I went back and got a PhD, and it was started with economics books, and then it, morphed into other things. But we run a 9-month program. One of the greatest gifts I've had, one of the guys I work with is Kuma Cum Laude from Colorado State. And he played, actually, I think you might have met him when you came up. He played the third base for the CSU when they won the World Series
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
club
Yeah.
championship. He didn't read. And he tried to
Yeah.
tell me he couldn't read. And I say, well, that's doubtful.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that you came out #1 in the business school, and you can't read. And now he is, but it was he started, and there was a group of us that started and did it. And then it turns into a habit. And reading can be one of those flow activities that gives you access and it's really someone else that's in the work. And that can be hard, especially in the mindfulness thing at business, because there's still more people that are not doing it than are doing it.
Yeah.
Until that changes, it's hard to sometimes expose yourself and find other people that are, supporting it. So I
Well, and
think
I look at it too, like this, what you were saying, you had a, you had a habit of doing what you were doing before you make the change. So you had a habit of
yeah,
grinding at work and,
yeah,
working 20
To,
hours a day
to
or
death.
yeah,
Yeah.
or drinking and not exercising. You had those habits.
Yes.
So why not be able to you established those habits. So when I look at it, it's kind of a aha moment for me. You establish those bad habits. Why not
Exactly.
establish good habits?
Well, and those same genetics that grind you like that can be. I mean, I haven't missed a day of meditation in about 8 years. I was really close. Well, we were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, and I got the flu. I was
Yeah,
really close, but
yeah,
I did a minute
yeah, yeah,
somehow, and it was that habit. Like, it's just like, it was been harder not to do it. It was like, don't break the chain.
yeah.
You can do this. Laying down and just for a minute, I said, all right, check it off. But that's that same, you know, habitual grind. Yeah.
Right.
Can I unleash that on something that's good for me,
Yeah, that's
that's
positive.
positive for me?
Right.
Yeah.
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 To get you more in your purpose.
Exactly.
So I have this question, Eric. In the word mindfulness is a term that's used a lot nowadays. And I've looked at different definitions or different ways to look at it. I want to know what your definition and what your mindset is of being mindful or mindfulness.
All right. So my focus is business, right? I just figured that's what I have to offer, is how to be mindful at work. And there's some $24 definitions, the ability to pay purpose, pay attention on purpose, non-judgmentally. But I really think in the business context, it's focus. How can I fill my mind with the one thing that I choose to focus on at the moment? Mindful of what I choose. Because there's so many distractions. I can't tell you how many meetings I walk into, and everybody, the iPad's on, the phone's on, they're stepping out. It's just so distracted. The meeting takes twice as long and gets half as much done. So our policies, no, don't, if you need to go excuse yourself and go do what you have to do. But we're going to focus for, this bit of time on this subject. So, and then I think is equally as important. So I want to be able to focus on what I choose to at work. And I say I can move the world in a couple hours today if I'm focused, if I can really focus on it. And then can I turn that flashlight on my family when I go home? Can I turn off that? Can I have done what I needed to do before I leave work so I feel good about it? Can I turn that off? And when I get home, genuinely find out how my family's day was, and be there. Because I find that we're half everywhere and we're nowhere. We're so distracted and so pulled by, business is doing it and we're good at it. Business is awesome. We figured out it used to be just this. I remember having the psychology classes in college on just, the subliminal marketing messages for media. And you start paying attention to that a little bit. Well, now social media and the news media, and it's our job in business to grab little slips of people's attention so that they take action towards our products. And there's only one way to combat it is it's not going to stop. As we fight for market share, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And we don't seem to be able to legislate cooperatively. So, I don't see it's going
Right.
to get better.
Right. Right.
So it's up to the individual at some point to say enough. I'm going to take my social media apps off my phone. I'm going to have some limits, I'm going to, do these things. I have to do some of these things but, I'm choosing to focus. I'll give you another example is like, I find one of the greatest ways to get started in this is just start taking walks, little walks. Like get back from lunch before I go into the office, take a walk around the building without my phone. It's like separation anxiety, right? But if I can't start with a small one, like 5 minutes, you know, just if I can't do that and just notice the surroundings of the building and notice, if I take a walk with somebody, notice them or whatever it is, just to try to, we can function, we can multitask, but we just can't pay attention to multiple things at one time. We're able to function and operate cars and all kinds of things, even conversations and all without paying attention. but they just aren't as efficient. They aren't as focused. They aren't as productive.
Well,
So
being present.
absolutely. It's like
Yeah.
when you're talking, it's the biggest gift you can give to somebody.
Right.
The biggest, and like with kids, that's all they really want.
Well, I
They
think it's the
want you to
biggest
be
gift you give. I think it's the biggest gift you can give yourself.
totally,
You know,
totally.
I have a saying that you need to learn to listen so you can listen to learn.
Absolutely.
And if
Yeah.
you're not present with people and they're not present when somebody's talking, you're never going to learn anything about them or what they're talking about. And you've missed an opportunity to grow.
Well, and we have our own conversation going, our own inner voice, our own inner dialogue going all the time. And if we don't learn to set that aside and keep refocusing on the words that someone is, saying to us, we're Stephen Covey said, people don't listen to understand. They listen, they prepare to respond.
Right.
I'm getting so ready to say what I need to say to Joe that I can't hear what Joe says.
Right. And I think business leaders and leaders in general have a hard time with that because I look at it like this: leaders want to help. Good leaders want to help. They want to help you grow. They want to help you progress. So they're always looking to coach. They're always looking to help you learn. So when a business leader has someone come in to you and starts talking to you about a problem or an issue or something like that they're having, they're already, that person's talking to them, they're already thinking about how I can help you, how I can coach you, how I can help you learn, how I can help you grow, instead of listening all the way through. And a lot of times, if you can listen all the way through, then you can help guide them to solve the problem themselves.
Exactly.
Now they own it. Now they've gained more confidence because they've learned to solve the problem. But as leaders, we want to jump in. We want to help. And we just got to relax a little bit, focus in, listen, understand what they're saying all the way through, learn what they've said, learn from it, and then give back to it.
You're totally right. I
Uh,
totally agree with you. And it's the biggest, and it's what it really is being present.
right. Yeah. Just being
Could
totally
I be
present.
present with somebody, and that's valuing them enough to set everything else aside for that little bit of time.
Right. So,
And my experience is I get more done if I'm willing to do that than I would. I mean, for
right.
years, I
Right.
had a racket that is just busy, don't bother me. I'm on the computer, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's like you can't come in the door because it's just a vortex, you know, and you miss out on so much. You miss out that people would really like to tell you something, but you don't give them the opportunity
Right.
because you're so busy. So I say, like one rule I have for leaders is, find out what only you can do and offload everything else. What can, hiring and firing the executive team, setting strategy, that kind of stuff, because you have to create some space. And it's hard for you to be a doer and an organizer and a leader, especially if you're an organization of any size. Small organizations, of course, you got to do both. But, you know, if you set aside the space so that you can actually be there to contemplate and to listen to
Right.
others,
Right.
and you're busy enough just with the things that come up with the day, that are coming up, if you're paying attention, that you can note in. So it's important to create some space. So one of the things I have people do is create a list of what can only you do. There's some other things that maybe you enjoy to do that help you with your own flow of the day and whatnot. And those are on the maybe list, as you get time. But some of those may have to go for a while too. If you're trying to create the space where you're actually walking around, talking to people, listening to them, seeing what they have to say, and having a presence in the office, right? That people know you're there.
Yeah. And be intrigued. I tell people all the time, one of the things I think it helps people is if they can look at things as being intriguing. Everyone that I talk to intrigues me. Everyone I talk to has a story your story that we're talking about today, where you were in your 20s and being highly successful, but being really frustrated inside and destroying your body and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So what a great story to tell on how to get out through that. Everyone has their story. I think helping people be present with people is to help teach them to be intrigued by people. When you're,
So one of the great lessons I learned, and I taught at Colorado State for 20 years,
yeah,
and you think about, hey, I want to be inspiring,
right,
and what I learned was if you want to be inspiring, be inspired.
yeah,
If you want to be interesting, be interested.
right, yeah,
If you want to be intriguing, be intrigued.
right,
It's when you gain those things, that's infectious.
right.
It's not something like an aura you can send out if you don't have it.
Right.
You need to work, inner work is saying, hey, what am I really interested in? Let's share that.
How
Why
cool.
don't I just share my enthusiasm for something?
I love
But
it. Yeah. When you said, if you want to inspire, be inspired.
it's
I
totally
have this thing called pipe. It's kind of my daily routine. So pipe means I pray for three things. The first P is pray for three things that I'm thankful for. The next I in pipe is listen to something, read something, watch something that
right.
inspires you so
Yeah.
you can inspire others. And that's what the I stands for. Is I think it's hard to motivate people, but I think it's easy to inspire people to motivate themselves. But if you're not inspired first, you can't inspire others. And so there's so many things out there. People are going to listen to this and get inspired. And then hopefully they take that and help that to use that to inspire others to motivate themselves.
And it goes back to purpose. I find that
No doubt.
leadership is born from purpose.
No doubt.
You find people stepping in. If people really feel that they're integral and have a purpose, they step into leadership in situations you're just amazed by.
Yeah.
But if they
And
don't understand why they're there and they're not motivated and they don't know, it's hard to jam somebody into being a leader.
yeah,
But they'll step into it if they go, gosh, this purpose inspires me.
right.
I can make a difference in something that I think matters to me and matters to others.
Right. And I always say that you usually find your purpose when your purpose is greater than yourself. And
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
so I want to kind of recap a little bit. Uh,
Great.
in your 20s, hard time, you had epiphany, you stepped on the scale and you knew you needed to make some changes. You did all those things. The two things that you've mentioned in reading your book and all that stuff is meditation and yoga. Those have been good for you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they would be good for a lot of people, to be honest with you. Meditation. Give me just a little bit insight on your meditation.
Well, I'm consistent with it. I do a variety of different things now, but but it's training focus. Meditation has become familiar with something. We pick something. I think the mistake most people make is they try to go too long and do too much. We
Okay.
start people with 2 minutes. Because if you go up there with this craziness, this crazy swirl
Right, right.
for 10, 20 minutes, when you haven't done it, you go, oh my God, I just, I can't meditate. It's too busy up there. Well, it's always been busy up there. You just haven't noticed. So we start noticing. And what happens if you start small is it calms down over time. So you start with a couple of minutes, which is doable for most people. If it has to be an app, fine. But I also say try to do a little bit without the app because you want it to be self-generated. Uh, over time, it calms down a little bit and you want more. And if you can be consistent, I mean, we take people to 10 minutes over 6 months and you start craving it. And the other thing that happens is with focus, you become more efficient and you have more time. So it's also people try to jam it in on top of a schedule that's already too busy and it just seems exhausting. So I say start small and be consistent. The yoga that we do is meditation with the body. It's just focusing on a body part. The other thing that I've gone to, I used to try to, kind of force yoga. And I found it's not effective. So what I try to do now is say, okay, what are you already doing? Well, I go to the gym, I'm lifting weights. Great. Don't stop that. But could you go a little slower, do a little more reps, take the weight down a little bit and just start noticing the body parts that are firing? Could you start noticing the muscle group? Could you start noticing your breathing while you're doing it? Because when we kick adrenaline in and we're just pushing out all out and trying to see how much weight we can lift, it's designed in our body not to be mindful. It's designed to be reactive, to be forceful, to do those.
Yeah.
And we need that sometimes. But mindfulness is training ourselves to go a little slower, pay a little more attention. So I have a chapter in the book on it, on how
Yeah.
yoga is great because it's the science of consciousness. It's really what they've designed to say, how do I pay attention to the different parts of my body? And the beauty is, if I'm paying attention to my shoulder, attention comes away from my brain and my thoughts slow down. So if I just pay attention to my thoughts all the time, they go worse, because where I pay attention to, it elevates it. So it's a matter of learning to train our focus. And like anything, any athlete, any musician, any artist, they have a practice, a rituals that they go through.
Yeah.
And so it's training myself to focus on what I choose to focus on. So, and if meditation just doesn't work for you, find something else that does.
So let me ask you this question: 2-minute meditation. So I'm somebody who wants to start this.
Yeah.
What do I do for those 2 minutes?
Just follow your breath. Just pay attention to your breathing for 2 minutes. And the other thing is, it's more like training a puppy.
Okay.
Than I guess that's just because you just start noticing when you've lost attention to your breath, and then you return it again. You notice when you've lost attention to your breath and you return to it again. And you don't judge yourself. You don't beat yourself up. You're just training yourself to come back to what I've decided to pay attention to. Now, there are other mechanisms, with mantras and yoga is focusing on the body, and there's other things, and I also say that the two things that I would start with, if you're reluctant to it, is one, I'd start with gratitude practice, because it's immediate mindset shift, and it takes a minute to start thinking of 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Right.
And the other thing I would start doing is little walks, without my phone, and just say, I'm just going to pay attention to, my surroundings, my feet, my whatever it is, for 5 minutes. Just start on the journey with the intention of being more mindful.
Okay. So I want to start this tomorrow. So I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I sit there with my eyes closed and I just hear myself or feel myself breathe for 2 minutes.
Yes. Yep.
That's it.
And,
how simple. Why can't
people
do it? People do it.
When you lose it, you just come back to it.
Yeah.
And you set a timer, and 2 minutes is up. Okay. And the bigger thing is, try to do it consistently. Can I do it the same time of day every day?
Right.
When I get so I can do 21 days straight, go to 3 minutes. And it doesn't have to be, 45-minute practice. I've been doing it for 25 years. I have a basic 20-minute practice. We get people up to 10 minutes over our program, and they say, "Will you go with it from then?" Is up to you. But you get so much richness out of 10 minutes. Right. And what happens is then you start noticing during the day, during periods of stress, you just notice yourself sitting in your body, breathing. And that is just grounding. It just lets you come from another place rather than reactive. And the next thought that comes up, which mine aren't usually that positive.
Right.
But in baseball terminology, I learned how to take some pitches. I don't have to follow every thought down every rabbit hole. I just, no, thank you.
And we have a lot of thoughts a day.
We do. 6,000, they say, something like that.
Yeah.
Most of them repetitive, and most of mine aren't that helpful.
Yeah. Most of them are negative.
But I've learned how to take some pitches. I don't have to swing it every
pitch. A great analogy.
I can just take them and just go, no, that's not what my vision is. That's not who I am. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Okay. I want to kind of dive a little bit into your book, because I want people to get your book. You said something that really caught my attention. And that statement was, profit is not a purpose.
Absolutely not.
Explain that to us. I love it.
It's a result of a purpose-driven organization, that's delivering goods that are needed in society.
Yeah.
And it's a natural outcome. It's a necessity. If we don't have profit, then, where's philanthropy going to come from? It's not. Yeah. Right. Or where's payroll going to come from? So it's a necessity, but it's not motivating. And it's keeping it's it's impossible to be present because we're thinking of the end result rather than the process of actually enjoying creating what we're creating, being with the people that we're creating it with,
Mm-hmm.
actually listening to somebody in a conversation, actually improving the lives of the people that we work with, including our own, and doing that. And then, so what I do with it though, I mean, I pay attention to it. I look at cash every week. I look at financial statements every month, and I have a strategic plan for every asset every quarter, that we look at. So I say during those periods of time, I'm present and focused on strategy. And I come away with a list of things that I'm going to do and different people around the table are going to do. And then I just go to work on being present and functioning during the time with that, intention of doing those things. But if I'm thinking of the end all the time, the problem is like baseball, or you're just thinking about if I'm going to win at the end, or golf and just thinking about my score, you're not present to the people that you're playing with or to your putt or to, it's like, can I be present to the action? Because I mean, business is just so rich and so fun,
Yeah.
and so intriguing if you're really a business person.
Right.
It can be, that part of it. And then you do have to pay attention to profit. I'm not saying it's not important. It's
Right.
essential.
Right. No doubt. No
But
doubt.
it's not the reason to be there every day, because what I end up doing is, and I say, okay, then when I make this pile, then I leave, you know, I've never learned to be present. So even when I retire with that pile of riches, I don't know how to enjoy it,
I don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
because I haven't ever learned how to just be present during the day
Right.
and take, what I am in one thing, I'm that way in everything I find, so if I haven't learned to just be present, then I think, oh, this someday I'm gonna, first of all, we may get sick or, who knows what happens, that we may not even get there. But even when we get there, we've trained ourselves for a lifetime in not being present to work towards, some end goal without participating meaningfully in the process.
Mm-hmm. And I have a saying,
It's just a waste.
you need to win the process. The process is more important than the end result, in my opinion, because if you
You
win
gotta
the
be present.
process, you're probably going to get your end result. The analogy I give to go along with what you're saying, when I coached kids for where they were going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from when I coached them. Were they going to be good fathers, good husbands,
Yeah.
good community members, good business people, good leaders, those kind of things. And can I use what I was coaching, the game that I was coaching, to help that process? And if I could develop those kids that way, the winning or the profit, a state championship or whatever it might be, the profit for us in athletics is going to happen more than it's going to be there. But if you just focus, I ask people this all the time: are you a data leader or are you a people leader? And I think people are what give you the data. And what a great opportunity. You said business is fun. I think that's such a great statement if you allow it to be. If business got to a point where it wasn't fun for you in the 20s, but then you found a purpose that was greater than yourself in helping others and supporting others with their growth and progression and everything else, then all of a sudden, boom, it took off.
And I learned I was good at getting what I needed from people.
Yeah.
To get what I needed that day. And that's was my level of relationship with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when that transformed, everything transformed.
Right.
When it transformed, no, I really cared about Joe.
Yeah.
I really cared about what was going on with Joe. That people sense that.
Now, one of the things I really like about your book is you have, and I kind of like, I don't know if I want to say lists or something, but you have 12 main things that you want to get across to people. Pillars. I love that. I have purpose pillars in my practice. What I try to coach people, purpose pillars, but you have 12 main pillars. We can't go over all 12. I just wanted to go over a couple. We've kind of talked about number 1, which is be present and practice mindfulness. 2, I want to go over this one with you. Identify your purpose in life. As a business owner, business leader, business CEO, president, vice president, just someone in a business, how important is identifying your purpose in life in terms of that?
Well, how do you even know that you're not just wasting your whole day,
Yeah,
at the wrong things? I mean, it's how do I know I'm, doing what I was born to do, that it connects with my soul? Because then I just soon be at work as anywhere else.
right,
I just if it's part of that purpose. So I aspire to, and I got this from Eckhart Tolle, is an inner purpose and outer purpose. The first stage in purpose is to wake up and just be alert, be mindful, be, conscious, and notice that. Because from there, I can notice what my innate skills and abilities and interests are. If at first I need to find what I'm really good at and I love to do
right,
both.
right.
Ken Robinson calls it your element. I want to find both of those things, and I find purpose in that. I might find some things that I love to do, like I loved baseball. I was terrible at it. I was good at track, you know, but I have to find out what I love and what I'm good at, and it takes some awareness to just not be doing the next thing. I mean, the statistics show it's something like 95% we're just doing the next habitual act. We're just bumming along. I taught college for 20 years and mostly seniors in real estate. And they'd come in, and I'd say, well, it's your last year. Why are you here? Well, mom or dad said,
Yeah, yeah,
business or engineering, and they'd pay for it. I'd say, well, here's what's next, job, wife, family, mortgage. You're going to wake up and be 50, you know, before you have your next real chance, probably for most people, to make some changes. So spend a little time here in your senior year, maybe a gap year, figuring out why you're here, what you want to do. Because mom and dad's, advice has been great to get you here, but it's your life. What do you want to do? And I just find so many of us has adopted culture's purpose for us, which is
yeah,
basically to make things and consume things.
right.
And there's nothing wrong with any of that. Gross domestic product improves the quality of, the quantitative quality of life and those kind of things, but it's not a purpose either.
Right.
Those
Right.
are great things, but I want to spend my day doing something that I find meaningful. And people say, I can't get motivated. Well, what's your purpose?
Yeah.
Because when you find your purpose, motivation is natural.
Right.
If you think you're making a difference in something that makes a difference, most people don't struggle with motivation. But if you're struggling with motivation, I say, look at purpose.
Yeah.
Why? What are you really doing? Am I in a position that actually suits me? Or am I just in the position so that I can get through here and have some money at retirement and then I can do what I want to do? I just think that's a dangerous path.
Yeah. I do
You know?
too. And I work with people on not only finding their purpose or kind of defining their purpose, like you said, but for me, I think that's the easier part. I think the harder part is how to live it, how to
Yeah.
stay in it with all the stuff that comes at us every day. So a business leader, so I'll just give me, for example, my purpose is to help people learn, grow, and keep progressing and be their best when their best is needed. That's what I love to help people do. That's my purpose. But if I drew a circle around it, the monks have a saying that you protect your purpose so your purpose protects you. So you draw a circle around your purpose, and then you draw a bunch of arrows coming at it. And those arrows are what I call the noise. All the things that are coming at you to try to take you out of your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And they could be whatever you want them to be. But what I want you to be is more conscious about those.
Yeah.
So now that they come at you, we're gonna build a big piece of memory foam around your purpose to protect it. Those arrows are gonna stick in there. We're gonna learn from that because that's our non-comfort zone area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're gonna learn from. But we're aware of them. We're gonna learn from them, but they're gonna make our purpose stronger instead of take us out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the challenge is like you could go talk to 10 business leaders and say, what's your purpose for leading this company? And they could give you that purpose, most of them. Then you ask the next question, how good are you at living that purpose every day? how good are you staying inside that purpose so that when you walk out of this office at night, you feel good about what you just did? You feel good about the day. You feel good about how your people are progressing. You feel good that your people want to come to work instead of have to come to work, whatever it might be. So when you talk about purpose, identifying your purpose in life, I just think that's so key. I just think it gives you so much more energy and pizzazz and meaning to wake up in the morning, and but you got to live in it every day. You can't let things take you out of it.
So there's, of the 12 pillars, there's three that I call that are foundational pillars. First is mindfulness or awareness, because it takes some awareness to recognize purpose.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
takes some, you
yeah.
have to take some quiet and some calm away from that swirl
Right,
to be able to separate out what everybody else wants from you to what, to hear your inner calling for what you want and what's important to you. And then so there's purpose. And the third one I'd call foundational is creating clarity, which is mindfulness and purpose, vision, intention, commitment, and habits. Because then from there, from that purpose, I need to create a new vision that I live into. I need to create a vision where I'm living towards something. I have a future that where I feel like I'm delivering on that purpose. And I need to set that, and then I need to check in on it, because it is hard. I mean, society and culture has all kinds of things designed. We make a plan and then life happens. So
yeah,
we have to be correcting and saying it. It's not like every day is going to get up and do, this is just what I'm, born to do. I have to do some things that I just have to do,
right,
you
yeah,
know, and I do them. So then I can get back to my purpose, and get back to what I want to do. But then we set a vision that says, this is what fulfilling on my purpose would look like. This is what it would be. This would be an ideal day in a purpose-driven life for me,
hmm,
my family and my friends and my athletics and my work and, all those kind of my philanthropy or whatever it is I've decided is important to me. I need to set that out, and then I, create a plan around it.
right,
Intention and commitments and habits are hand in glove. I need to make commitments, and if my habits are different than my commitments, then it's very hard to keep my commitments.
wow,
I need to work on training my habits to be consistent with my commitments. If I've made a commitment to be more mindful, do I have some mindfulness habits so that when I fall off my commitments a little bit, my habits are there automatically. And when I have the flu or the vacation or the recession or whatever it is that throws me off my habits for a little bit, I'm there with my vision and my commitment that bring me back and say, no, get it going again. I missed 3 days, but I know how important this is. I'm getting back on the
yeah,
horse.
yeah,
So I
no
need to
doubt.
have those things in line. And I take some awareness to start noticing what my habits are,
Right,
because they're by definition not conscious.
right,
I'm
yeah,
just doing them.
right,
And that's not a way to live a purpose driven life.
no doubt. And
I
the
have
what?
to have some awareness. And what I say is then I want to create my habits that set me to my vision. So even when I'm not paying attention, I'm delivering on my purpose,
Right, right,
rather than as the default means of us, most of us, is when I'm not paying attention, I'm sabotaging.
yeah,
You know, I'm eating the chocolate cake. I'm having the beer. I'm, Netflix, whatever it is,
right,
do I have that habit? Which is, no, I'm picking up a book, or I'm picking up my journal, or I'm taking a walk, or whatever it is that's consistent with that. Because we're habit driven creatures.
yeah,
And if we have to spend the time in it, and this 21 day to habits, I think is not right. I mean, I could probably, get a habit of smoking in 21 days, but as far as a habit that's countercultural, something like mindfulness and exercise and, these things, it takes more.
yeah,
It takes longer because we're not in an environment that supports it.
right.
And our environment is so key to supporting it. So those are the three. The other 9 pillars are mindset, different mindsets that go within that, but those are the foundational pillars.
And I love it. I have people do a purpose board.
Great.
People have a vision board, which I think
My
are
vision
great.
boards, my vision board's up behind us there.
Yeah, I love it, and I've seen it. being in your office and so forth, but it's a purpose board for me kind of keeps me in that purpose. It's like, why am I here?
Right. Right.
And I can look at that board and say, oh, okay. It might show one of my ex-players' wedding picture, or it might show one of my
Yeah. Sweet.
ex-players, company logo or whatever it might be. So yeah, oh man, this is so awesome. Beginner's mind means, this is the other one I wanted to go over. Beginner's mind means to know nothing absolutely and be curious. Discover how a state of unknowing leaves you open to explore possibilities and expand awareness. That's pillar number 12.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Beginner's mind means to know nothing.
Well, just
You
think about the state of where we are. I mean, science isn't even aligned and in uniform on what consciousness is or where it comes from and what comes first, the body or consciousness, which is in my opinion, it's the most fundamental element of existence. And we're not even sure what that is.
right.
You know, the best we can do is to be curious about it and notice what our own experience. Yes, we can study it and try to get the ideas and whatnot, but science is not set on it. So we have to make a choice and a decision on what we choose to believe in and what the tenets that we to follow. But if that fundamental thing isn't known and agreed upon, it's like, is the world flat? How do we think that we know so much about the world and what's going on? The human mind is wired to think it knows. That's how it takes action. If we didn't think we knew anything, we wouldn't be able to take action. But we know a lot less. And absolutely, I'm talking about the subatomic level. I know what's happening at what I see, but science is saying that's not even really there. I mean, an owl doesn't, or a bat doesn't see the same things we see.
Yeah.
We're seeing it so that we can refer to it and we can take human actions, and do things. But when you get that in reality, that's, yes, relatively is there. And I don't want to get weird on the podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
in an absolute sense, we know it's just a bunch of vibrating energy, that we interpret as being Joe.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we know less absolutely than we act like we know. So we create something meaningful, something purposeful out of it. That's human. I created an existence out of purpose and values and driven, and this is how I'm going to live my life. And I hopefully find people that, support that in communities that I live with, either at church or, in business or whatever it is that, we live in have some common values. But whenever we're hung up on that, I have the truth, we stop listening to others, and it just eliminates curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to draw some conclusions to operate,
Right.
and to
Right.
live.
Right.
But for me to say mine are the truth versus Joe's or versus Sam's or Martha's, absolutely. I mean, I just don't know how we think we know that when we don't know some of the even most fundamental questions of existence. So it's just to stay there and be curious with it.
Yeah.
Start noticing, oh, I wasn't conscious for, an hour. Where the heck was I?
Yeah. Be intrigued.
Yeah. And curious. Curious just means I don't know everything.
Right.
Even when you walk for a business leader, what's the most effective meeting? When will you walk in and you know everything and you just tell people what to do? And there are times in emergencies and that kind of thing, and your experience and whatnot, you are the one to do that. But in general sense, or is it more general to ask questions?
Right.
Find out what the people around the table know, what they think, what they feel, what they're willing to do. To me, that's a more empowering leader to draw and to other people in it, and not to just walk in and know everything to give orders.
Yeah.
And also it's boring.
It is. It really is. Be intrigued and your life is not boring.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
it's not to say oftentimes the leader doesn't know more than anybody else in the room. You should, but allow the others to speak and listen to them
Yeah, and learn
and
from them.
guide them towards a wisdom decision
All right.
rather than
Yeah.
just directing. Yeah.
Wow. We've already gone an hour. I have
Awesome.
a quick question
It's
for you.
great.
3 questions. I wrote a book called The Three Ps: Find Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion.
Great.
And that's what I asked. That's how I finish my podcast. I want my people who listen to this podcast to get to understand more people's purpose, passion, and perspective. So I ask my guests those 3 questions. What's your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is to change the business conversation, to have business realize that they're much more impactful than just making things, that we have a bigger role to play in society, that we move the world, and what our purpose is and our vision is matters.
Yeah. And what is your passion?
God, I would say my passion is people.
Yeah.
You know, my passion is, it's not that dissimilar from yours, Joe, is to meet people, listen to them, to see things in people they don't see in themselves,
Yeah.
and to help them bring that out. I've just learned what I can do myself is very limited. But if I can grow people, then I can get a lot more done.
Wow. And I always say that purpose and passion kind of help each other. They kind of equal each other.
Absolutely.
They support each other.
Absolutely.
And you just proved that. But I also say this: what holds it together, the glue that holds it together, is your perspective. And
Yeah.
things come at us to try to change our perspective. Bad things, good things, just different things come at us. What's your perspective on life that kind of holds your purpose and passion together?
Change the things that I can and accept what I can't. You know, I find with acceptance, I mean, I need to poke and prod at things to see where I can make a difference. But I have a limited power of what I can actually change in the world. I can change my circumference and my sphere and those things. So change the things that I can and accept and make the best out of those things that I can change,
Wow.
and do what I
Simple.
can with my time on this earth to make it a
Yeah.
little better place.
Well, how do people get your book? I see it there in the
Yeah.
background. Why don't you kind of put it up to the screen? I'll
Yeah.
put mine up to the
Yeah.
screen.
Great.
There it is, right
Yeah.
there.
Profit with Presence, the 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. You can find about it and our programs on livinginthegap.org, livingin-the-gap spelled out.org. We have a number of programs. We have an 8-week mindfulness session coming up in Denver in the spring, and it's available on Amazon. That you can order a copy of it. And it kind of outlines our program and the different things. And it's hopefully designed that you can take as little or as much as you want, but the goal would be to, start doing something and be as consistent as you can. Start small and be consistent.
And Eric, you really amping up your speaking, your keynotes, and so forth too. Is
Yeah.
people get a hold of
Really
you
love
through
that.
your website?
Yeah, that's right. You can just send a mail or send to Eric at livinginthegap.org. I do speaking through Vistage and other
Yeah,
private groups and enjoy it very much. So
yeah. He's going to come speak to our group in April, and
looking forward to it.
I can't wait for that. This exceeded my I had huge expectations, and this exceeded them. What you're doing for people and helping people have a better life, have a more meaningful, purposeful life. I tell this story often. I took my dad to see his lifelong friend when this guy was 84. My dad was 84. My dad's 89 now. His friend was on his last legs and wasn't doing well. He was in a nursing home, couldn't get out of bed. And this guy was a commercial airline pilot. That was his career, and he loved it. And he looked at my dad at 84 years old and he said, "I just wish I could fly again." And I thought, man, when I'm 84, am I going to say, "I just wish I could coach again"?
Isn't that great? Yeah.
And that's living a life of purpose, because his purpose in flying was to get you and your family somewhere.
Yeah.
It might be
That
taking
awesome.
people to a Thanksgiving dinner with other family members. And
Uh-huh.
he loved being able to do that. Again, purpose greater than yourself. And when he was 84, he looked back and said, "I wish I could do it one more day." And
Awesome.
I
Isn't that
really
great?
hope people hear that, because I want people when they're 84 years old to say, "I just wish I could do blank one more day.
That's
And
awesome.
that blank is something that has a meaning and a purpose that's greater than themselves. And that's when I think then you live a purpose driven life. So it's a good story. I tell it a lot. People on my podcast have probably heard me say it a lot, but I keep reiterating it because I want people to be mindful of that, of what their purpose is, and the kind of the begin with the end in mind a little bit.
Awesome.
But thank you again so much for coming on. People, get his book. It's it's unbelievable in how it's going to help you and change you, not only you, but your people that you're leading and helping and coaching and supporting, and young leaders, young people who are going to be leaders and so forth. It's just an amazing book. And I hope you get to read it. I hope you get on and get it. And I hope you get on his website and get him to come speak to your group. It's life-changing stuff for the better. So thank you so much for listening to the People Progressing podcast this week. And like I always tell you, keep sharing this with people, subscribing. I don't know how to do all that stuff, but do it, because we want to keep growing this, and keep, please progressing. Thank you so much, and have a great week.